Today on the We Invested podcast, we have Jonathan J. And he is the founder and CEO of Deal Makers. Jonathan, how are you doing today?
I'm great, thank you. Good to be on the show.
Absolutely. This is a topic that I'm always excited to learn more about. It's extremely interesting, man, and it just looks cool. It sounds cool. But, before we dive into that, would you mind letting the people know how they can find you on the internet, via your website or social media?
Yeah, sure. So the website is dealmakers.co.uk. That's .co.uk. So it's a British website, and people can find me on LinkedIn. That's the only social media platform that I use.
Absolutely, absolutely. And let's just kind of start from the top and talk a little bit about, where you're from and where you grew up.
Yeah, sure. So I'm from the UK originally. I live in West London. I was actually born east of London, moved around a few times over the years, and I've been here in West London, which is a really lovely part of London. I'm right by a large park in a place called Richmond upon Thames. Henry VIII of England used to hunt deer in that park and have
Oh,
his
wow.
jousting matches right outside my window. I'm on Richmond Green, right in the center of town here. So it's a
Wow.
very historical area, and I have a young daughter. She's nearly 7, and everything I do in business is for her. She is the focus of my world.
Absolutely. That is incredible. I mean, how would you say just growing up in London and in different areas impacted your outlook on life and success?
Well, my parents had their own business, but it was it I would never say that we were starving. It was never it was never that bad, but there was always a choice. Do we if we go on holiday, we have to sacrifice somewhere else. And when I was growing up, foreign holidays, overseas holidays were not normal. Nowadays in the UK, it's actually cheaper to go to Europe than it is to stay in the UK. Or at the very least, the same price. So um, I think I saw that money was scarce, and I decided at that point I never wanted to be in that position myself, even though I was, I was in that position in my 20s, never having enough money, always sort of just paying the rent, not every month was a stressful rent day was a stressful day. So I I very much learned from that experience that although it's not all about money, if you are comfortable financially, then it makes your life a lot less stressful. It gives you
Absolutely.
more options, and it doesn't create happiness, but it can help bring happiness a lot better than being broke. And
Absolutely.
we've all been broke, so none of us enjoyed it.
Absolutely. And I feel like it gives you the chance to, once you get in a good place financially, it gives you a chance to start to think bigger and maybe think a little bit more creatively, and it
Yes, it
puts you in
does.
the mindset to uh help other people solve their problems. Just speaking of, just that entrepreneur mindset of helping others and having that reach and that impact. I want to ask you about the current company that you've grown and expanded. And I want to ask, what is Deal Makers?
Sure. So, Dealmakers is an educational business, and I started it. I started running events, meetings for people who were interested in buying businesses back in 2016. And this was off the back of having just completed a a very complicated transaction where I bought a group of companies from their private equity owner for a dollar. and I bought them for $1 because they were losing money. The private equity owner just wanted to get rid of all of the problems, and I said, give me all the problems. I'm not going to pay for them, but just give me all the problems, because I thought I could sort the problems out. And I did in most part, and ended up with a business that I could sell. And I sold it 11 months after buying it for $1. And people wanted to know how I did it. You know, I think most business people, business-minded people would think, well, actually, that's pretty cool. How did you do that? So I had some get-togethers in 2016. I did more in 2017, and it kind of like it just grew and grew. More and more people came along to these events until I realized that I actually did have an educational business, but it grew from people wanting to know how I had done it. So I taught them. You know, there are no secrets. I told them exactly how I did it. I told them the mistakes that I made. I'm always very open about the things that don't go right, or the things that I would do differently second time round. And I was actually looking at the numbers today, and we've had thousands of people. In fact, I'm just looking to say, quote you the correct numbers, but we've had thousands of people come onto our courses in the last few years. So yeah, I've had nearly 2,000 people come on my Zoom training. I've had uh, nearly 8,500 people on my webinars during the pandemic when we couldn't go to events. So it's turned into a global business. 50% of my clients are outside the UK. And actually, I didn't say what we do. We teach people how to buy businesses, how to
That's
buy
incredible.
businesses without risking your house, doing it the smart way, and then eventually how to sell that business once you bought it.
How did you discover this industry? Meaning, what was the spark that got you interested in and wanted to actually acquire your first business and your first company?
Well, the first M&A, mergers and acquisitions transaction, was actually in 1999, and I sold a business, and I made more money the day I sold that business than I had made in the previous 2.5 years of running and owning the business. And for 2.5 years, I turned up every day. I thought about it all day long. I was in the office at the weekends. But despite all that hard work, I made more money the day I sold it than the previous 2.5 years combined. And that really opened my eyes to this world of mergers and acquisitions. And when you say M&A, that includes exits, that includes sales as well. But it took me a few years, till 2006 to first buy a business, and it was a competitor of my existing business. And it was a big competitor, a multi-million pound turnover competitor. And I found out about the opportunity to buy this competitor on a Monday afternoon, and I owned it Friday afternoon. So when people say, doesn't it take months and months and months to buy a business? No, you can do it in a matter of days if you know what you're doing and you have a process to follow. And that was a bit of a life-changing deal, because now I owned my business, I owned my competitor's business, I put the two together, and then I sold that combined larger business to a private equity firm in 2007. And that was a really good, that was a really, really good deal. Very good.
Man, that's incredible. I mean, and is it does it provide like a sense of relief once you successfully exit a business or successfully sell a company? How is that feeling for you?
Oh yeah, absolutely. And it's a sense of accomplishment. I mean, we all like to be paid for the work that we do, but it's not so much the money that makes you happy, it's the "I did it" that makes you happy. And that sense of I've done something that I set out to do. And yeah, it's a buzz that it's hard to describe, but every single one of my clients who does this will always say it's the best feeling in the world.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I mean, in the biggest question that pops in my mind when we speak about you know, acquiring a new company is the funding. So, how is it possible? What does that look like? Do you have
Sure.
to be a millionaire? Can you do it
No,
without cash? Like, what are the options that people have here if they were interested in buying businesses?
sure. So the misconception is that you have to be wealthy to buy a business, because surely to buy a business, you need to have the money to buy that business in your bank account, or you have to be able to go to the bank and get a huge amount of credit in order to buy a business. And now you can do it that way. I mean, there's nothing stopping you doing that way, but it's not a particularly smart way of doing it. And I enjoy helping people buy businesses in the smart way that does not depend upon getting credit or having money in their own bank account. And the way you do it is dependent upon the type of business that you are buying. But the worst thing you can ever do when you buy a business is give the seller, the vendor of the business, all the money on day one. If you
Mm,
give the vendor of the business all the money on day one, they have zero incentive to help you make that business successful. If they're going to get a bit of money on day one and a bit more next year and a bit more the year after, they will help you be successful because they want their money.
absolutely.
And creating that incentive is very important. Otherwise, if they take the money and run, if you want to know about something or just have some help with something, they're not going to be there for you because they don't care anymore.
Does that financing option take some negotiation or some explanation, or are the sellers typically open to this form of financing and form of purchasing
Sure.
their company?
So every person selling a business wants all the money on day one,
Hmm.
because you would and I would. But
Absolutely.
realistically, in the real world, that doesn't happen. It really doesn't. So even if you're selling your business to private equity and they've got lots of money, you're not going to get all your money on day one. It just does not happen. So this structured deal is normal, but most business owners have never sold a business before. So they're
Right.
doing this for the first time. So they don't know how it's done. So you can't blame them for wanting all the money on day one. What you've got to do as the buyer is that you've got to show them that is not how it's done. So you've got to educate them in a way. And some people won't ever agree to it. So they'll be trying to sell their business for a long time. So you just leave the door open, and maybe in 6 months, 12 months' time, they'll come back and say, well, actually, you were right. I couldn't find anyone who'd give me all the money on day one. Can we still do a deal? So there is, yeah, it is a negotiation. It always is. But it's like anything in business, it comes down to your ability to help the other person get what they want while at the same time getting what you want. So help them get their exit from the business that's stressing them, the exit from the business they've been working at for 20 years, they're 65 years old, they want to retire, but at the same time, getting what you want, which is a solid, profitable business that makes you money from day one.
Absolutely. And why is buying a business faster than starting a business from scratch?
That's a really good question. So I've started businesses from scratch, and you spend the first 6 to 8 months figuring out what the logo looks like, sorting out the website, maybe longer, um, figuring out the products and services you're going to sell, testing the pricing, going out finding your first client, all at the same time as not earning any money.
Right.
Now, that can be hard work. It might be hard work that never pays off. I mean, the majority of startup businesses don't succeed, they fail. The odds are against you succeeding. Now, no one ever goes into it thinking like that. But if you were to place bets on a startup business being successful, you're better off betting it won't be successful because the odds are in your favor. Now, compare that to buying a business. Now, when you buy a business that's at least 5 years old, it's got over that startup hump. When we buy businesses in boring sectors, so sectors that make money day in, day out, We don't have to worry about, will this app take off?
Hmm.
Will it get listed on iTunes? Will we be able to get the downloads? All that uncertainty goes. And we've got a business that's been making money day in, day out for 20 years. Now, as long as we don't mess around with it and change anything, let's hope it makes money for the next 20 years as well. And if we've got a business where it's not dependent upon the owner can go off and take their world cruise,
Hmm.
and the business carries on making the money with the same team, and you can be relatively hands off because you don't want to change things, because changing things can I sold a business, the business I mentioned, actually 2007, and the new managing director, so the new CEO that was put in by the private equity firm, asked me for advice. He said, Jonathan, what is your advice to me as the new person running this business? And I said, don't change anything. Don't change the pricing. Don't change the products. Don't change the people. It works. It's a very delicate balance. It works. Don't touch it. So what did he do? He went and changed everything. A year later, the new owners, the private equity guys, came to me and they said, would you like to have 49% of the business back for nothing in order to come back and sort out the mess this guy's created? And I said, but I told him, I said, don't change anything. So my best advice when you buy a business that's solid and profitable is don't change anything.
Absolutely. No, and that's great advice. I mean, it's very attractive to hear as well that you can just you can purchase a company that provides you that passive income. You purchase something that's already working um, in a boring sector that you mentioned, which I think is also a very key, um, just key ingredient to being successful in purchasing businesses. While I was doing my research, I found an interesting stat that you were able to acquire 48 businesses in less than 3 years. I mean,
Yes.
which I think is something incredible. How are you able to accomplish a task of this magnitude?
Well, when people ask me what my advice is about buying 48 businesses in a pandemic, which is the period that it was in, my best advice is don't go and buy 48 businesses during a pandemic. I mean, to say it was stressful is an understatement. In actual fact, acquisition number 48 landed me in hospital, and
Wow.
I had stomach pains that were so bad that, and I knew it wasn't appendicitis because it was the wrong part of my stomach or the wrong part of my body. But I would imagine it's similar to appendicitis. I was doubled over in pain. I went to my doctor, who sent me to the hospital for a colonoscopy, which isn't the most pleasant procedure. And they couldn't find anything wrong. They thought it was something, serious, but they couldn't find anything wrong. And it was stress. It was all caused by stress. And so 48 deals in 2.5 years, very, very stressful. But the the reason we could do so many was because the pandemic had created fear in the business community. And people, particularly of retirement age, were saying, well, I was going to retire in 2 years' time. You know what? I just want to get out now.
Hmm.
Now, the interesting thing is that the worldwide recession that we either are in or aren't in, depending upon who you listen to, is creating exactly the same situation. So the people on my courses, they're finding exactly the same as during the pandemic. There is a rush of people wanting to exit their business, and that's the opportunity for a business buyer.
Is it possible that anyone can get started in buying businesses?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, there's the only thing to hold you back is yourself. You can get the knowledge, you can build the confidence by practicing the knowledge, and yes, anyone can do this. Now, my I always say you should have a business head on your shoulders. So you should understand what profit is, for example. I mean, if you don't know
Hmm.
what profit is, don't go and buy a business. And you don't have to. Let's say you went and bought a laundromat. You don't have to know everything about different detergents and how the washing machine, the machines work. You have to know about that too. That's what engineers are for, and that's what your person who opens up in the morning and closes up at night. They're going to order the detergent when it runs low. That's for them to do. All you have to know is how much it costs to run the business. Make sure the bills are paid, and make sure the business has money left over every month, the profit, which is your money. So I bought 48 businesses in a sector that I had no prior experience of, but I teamed up with people who did. So I borrowed effectively their advice, and they ran the business, and I was the investor, if you like.
Absolutely. And that kind of leads me to my next question. How did you focus on gaining your business acumen and your business IQ? What forms of education did you use? So was it trial and error? Did you have mentors? Were you reading books? I see you have a lot of books behind you. Were you listening to podcasts? What methods were you using to become business savvy?
Yeah, so you got to remember this. This goes back to the 1990s. So this is a long time ago, um, and it was definitely trial and error. I wish that I had had a mentor. If I'd found someone who could have guided me, I would have done more. I would have done it faster. I'd have done it better. I would have made more money. I wouldn't have spent years trying to figure it out. I have a character flaw, which is I don't like listening to other people, and I know that has held me back. And I have promised myself I am going to listen to other people more now. People listen to me. People listen to my advice. I should listen to other people's. But yeah, if I'd had a mentor back when I was in my 20s, I could have done so much more. Um, yeah, and there was actually I remember in about 1993, 94, an American speaker called Jay Abraham. I don't know whether you've come across him. It came to the UK, and it was a very, very expensive seminar. It was three and a half. Well, it was about $5,000, so £3,500, $5,000, and I couldn't afford it. Well, I could afford it because you could pay over several months, and yeah, it would have been a bit of a squeeze, but I could have done it, and I talked myself out of it, and I should have done it.
Mm,
I wish I'd done it now. It would have accelerated my progress.
mm. Those are
So
very
yeah,
pow- those are very powerful words.
so trial and error, but that was a mistake.
Mm, mm. Absolutely. I mean, just kind of going back to that 48 acquisition that you had in 2.5 years, what were what sectors were you looking in? Are there any specific business sectors that you favor? Um, and you know, what is the secret to finding a great business to buy and finding a profitable business?
Okay, so those 48 were all in one sector. They were kindergarten schools. So that's sort of like 3 months old to 5 years. So that's sort of preschool education. Do you call that kindergarten, that age group? Uh,
Yes.
yeah, so it's before you go to sort of big school.
Mm-hmm.
Um, Now, I have people on my courses buying businesses in all different types of sectors: digital marketing, dental practices, yeah, IT companies, manufacturing businesses, anything, yeah, hairdressers, barber shops, yeah, anything you can think of. I've got someone who's bought a business in that sector. Um, and I don't think it's about this is a good sector or this is a bad sector. It's more about is this a good business or a bad business?
Mm-hmm.
And whichever sector you look at, we could pick anything. Let's say barbershops. There are barbershops that are profitable and barbershops that aren't. Now, does that make it a good sector or a bad sector? Or is it in every sector your business is doing well and businesses that don't do well? And the key difference usually between the two is the owner. Now, the owner might say, oh, it's the location and it's the customers. Yeah, but really, it's the owner because the owner started the barbershop at that location and therefore got those customers. So if that location isn't working, go and get a different location. So it's people ask me all the time, what are good sectors? And I don't think it is about the sector. However, there are a few guidelines. So typically, businesses that sell to other businesses, so B2B, are better than B2C, business to consumer. Businesses with recurring revenue. Now, recurring revenue, you might not have come across that phrase, but we all know what it is. It's memberships, it's subscriptions, it's the Netflix, it's the gym. So businesses where you get a customer once and they pay again and again and again for a period of time. Businesses with assets. So businesses that own buildings, own equipment, machinery, they're good businesses to buy because we can finance by using those buildings and that equipment and machinery as collateral for the loan. So that's another tick in the box. So the ideal business would be business to business, recurring revenue, and it's got plant machinery and buildings to finance. Now, we can't always tick those boxes. And just because a business doesn't tick those boxes does not mean that it's a bad business to buy. It just means it's a different business to buy, which is why the more you know about buying a business, the more likely you are to find good deals. Because the good deals are out there, you've just got to know what to look for. And I think when someone knows very little about buying a business, they think there aren't any deals out there. They can't see the deals. Where a smart business buyer says, well, that's a good one, and that's a good one, and that's a good one.
Absolutely. I mean, how important is it in your industry to network and build relationships, and how important is that for you?
Yeah, let me show you something. This is my little orange book of contacts. And in this little orange book of contacts, I have got hundreds and hundreds of different contacts, whether they're lawyers, attorneys, CPAs, whether they are finance brokers. I've got the lot. And you never know when you need a good contact for something. So I collect contacts. If you like, it's my hobby, collecting contacts. And if you collect contacts, you will always have someone to turn to should you need help. And usually when people have a problem, they say, how do I do this? How do I do this? I think the question is wrong. That is not the question you should be asking. The question you should be asking is, who can do this? Not how do I do it? Who can do this for me, do it faster and do it better than I would do it, and it can do it now because I haven't got time right now. Who can do this for me right now? So
Absolutely.
that's my view on networking.
No, and I feel that this is a belief that I have, is there's always someone out there to solve a problem, to be able to solve your problem for you. Like the solution to your problem is typically another person.
Yeah, absolutely. And I had a real sort of stress crisis in the summer, just a few months ago. And I was talking to someone last week who I've known for years. And he said, Jonathan, why didn't you ask me for help? I would have helped you. And I thought, you know what? Why didn't I ask him? It's almost like looking back, I'm not sure what I was thinking. I'm not sure what was I thinking that he wouldn't. I should have just gone to him. So I didn't use my little orange book properly. But this should be your go-to place to get your contacts from. Absolutely.
You're no stranger to entrepreneurship. Is this a interest in the skill set that you feel that you were born with, or is it something that developed over time?
Well, I've always been interested in business, and where some people had movie stars as their heroes or sports stars as their heroes, mine were business people. So a little bit unusual. And I think these days entrepreneurship is encouraged a lot more than it used to be.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, and in schools as well. I was at my daughter's Christmas school Christmas fair, and there were some stands with some girls selling jewelry and things that they'd made. And this was the school entrepreneurship society. And I just think things like that are brilliant, and I completely support that. But I've always had an interest in it, but I'm not particularly good with numbers, and I try and find people who are. So you don't have to be a whiz kid at numbers. I don't think I'm particularly creative. I just have an idea and can find the people to make it happen. Um, and I'm not particularly good at implementing the idea myself. So it probably sounds like, Jonathan, what are you good at? You're not good at anything, right? But I'm good at getting that initial idea and saying, wouldn't this be a good idea? And then going out and finding the people to make it happen. And if that's what entrepreneurship is, and then I'm an entrepreneur.
Absolutely, and a visionary for sure. Um, which ways have you found success attracting new students, new clients, and new business partners for deal makers? Which marketing outlet works best for you? Has it been social media, online, word of mouth?
Yeah.
Uh,
Good,
wh-
good question. Well, over the last, because I've been running these courses for, let me get my years right. Is it 6 years or just coming up to 6 years, something like that? And I have never paid for any marketing. Oh well, actually, I may have paid a few $100s here and there for for I don't know, an exhibition stand or something. But I don't sort of run online marketing. Uh, all I have is a YouTube channel. And that YouTube channel, I've got a podcast as well, but it's mostly the YouTube channel. That YouTube channel brings me all of my clients, and it gets thousands of views a day. And people find me. I've got no idea I don't know how it works. People find me, and they like the videos, and I enjoy making the videos as well. We put out 2 new videos every week, and yeah, so people just find me, and it happens. I make it sound very easy, but there's probably some hard work. But I've got a very hardworking videographer who films the videos and does all the editing. But again, it's asking yourself that question: who, not how. I mean, if I had to edit the videos myself, I mean, it would never happen. It would be awful. So I just find other people who are better at me at doing things. And
what
yeah,
was the
people come.
what was the initial vision behind getting that YouTube channel? What was the idea and the hope from starting this YouTube and now to what you've seen, what you've grown it to today?
Well, let me be very honest about that. I don't think it was my idea. I think someone told me I needed a YouTube channel. I put up some videos that are just embarrassing to, when I look back on them. And it only really professionalized when I got a sponsor. So there's a law firm, a firm of attorneys in London that sponsor the channel, and I've got a contract with them. So I've got to produce a certain number of videos every month. Because I've got to do it, I do it. If I didn't have that pressure of them counting the videos and making sure that the videos were there, because they get a mention in the videos, you see. If I didn't have that pressure, maybe I wouldn't be doing 2 new videos a week. So I never thought for one moment that would be the source of of clients, of business. I never thought for one moment. Because I'm 51 years old, and I I I didn't grow up with social media, so it's I wouldn't say it's all new to me, but it's newer to me than maybe someone in their 30s or 20s.
Absolutely. How do you define success as an entrepreneur?
Well, my definition of success has changed a lot in the last couple of years, and I um I like to live comfortably, but what's more important to me is taking my daughter to school, is going on vacation with her. We're going away in a few days' time, and spending Christmas with her. That is more important. So that is now my definition of success. But I think if you just chase the millions of dollars, um, somehow that doesn't seem to work. I think that if you love what you do and you're providing a product or a service that people also love, if you help other people get what they want, um, then you will ultimately get what you want. And the most important thing is to enjoy it. When you stop enjoying it, why are you doing it? And if the only answer to that question is money, I'm just doing it for the money, then I think that, why don't you do something that you enjoy that also brings in some money? I mean, we've only got one life. Let's make the most of it. You never know what is round the corner.
Absolutely. I mean, and I think um something that's very admirable to me is that your focus on having, your focus on your family, your focus on having being able to build the life that you want to build, but you've also successfully executed having multiple revenue streams as well, and like understanding the importance of that. So meaning, being able to bring in revenue from YouTube, your YouTube videos and sponsorships, having deal makers, which creates these courses that help your clients, as well as purchasing businesses yourself. um why was it important for you to just create these multiple streams of income for yourself?
Well, I didn't actually do that consciously. I didn't sit down with a plan. It's just happened that way. I mean, I've got some property, and the property have tenants, um, and I suppose that's a source of income as well. It's really just I like to be busy. I like to be productive and do things. And probably in the past, I've been too busy. Where now I'd like to think that I can take some time off. I'm looking forward. I mean, we're recording this just before the Christmas holidays, and I'm looking forward to some time off. But I'm already thinking about January and raring to go in January. And I want next year to be a really good year. I'm looking forward to next year. I'm a big believer in setting goals. New Year, we call them New Year's resolutions. I don't know whether you have the same phrase, but yeah, setting my goals for the year, and going out there and achieving it. A little bit like a sports person saying, yeah, these are my sort of my fitness goals, or for the year. This is what I'm going to do. That's what I do, and I'm looking forward to that little gap between Christmas and New Year where it goes a little bit quieter, and I can plan everything for 2023.
How would you like for people to remember you as well as the companies that you've built and created?
Oh, I don't know. I mean, I would like my daughter to remember me as someone who worked hard and provided, and was also there, not a workaholic. Workaholics bad, you got to get the family time right. I'm not really too bothered about what other people think or say. Yeah, I'm more uh way more interested in what my daughter says about me. That's the most important thing for me.
What does the future of deal makers look like to you?
Well, yeah, during the pandemic, we started doing things on Zoom, which I'd never done before. And now 50% of our clients are around the world. So I'm based in London. 50% are in the UK. And then I've got people in Australia and Canada, North America, South America, all over Europe, Scandinavia. It really is quite remarkable. So I'm going to be visiting some of those countries, and running some seminars on how to buy a business. And I love doing it. I would do it if I wasn't paid for it. I am paid for it, but if I wasn't paid for it, if someone said, Jonathan, from this moment onwards you can't charge for it, I'd say okay, fine. I'd still do it.
Absolutely. And it's one question I forgot to ask you a little bit earlier, but I wanted to see, or I wanted to understand, how do you actually source the businesses? Is there a particular website that you like, or is it more so the businesses that are around you that you can see? What are your thoughts on that?
Yeah. I never use websites because if it's on a website, then other people are looking at it, and that creates a competitive situation. And competitive situations usually mean the price goes up. And also, if they're listed on a website, they've been put there by a business broker, so like a realtor for businesses, which means that again, it's competitive. The business broker may well have put the price up to, I don't know what goes through their heads, but quite often people who represent businesses think the businesses are worth more than they truly are. I prefer going direct to the vendor, and I find someone who's interested in selling their business by sending out letters. You know, good old fashioned letters in an envelope, stamp on the envelope, send out the letter, and people who receive the letters, if they're interested in selling, they'll phone me. So very basic, very old fashioned, really, but it's the very fastest way. And all of the people on my programs, that's all they do. They don't go to websites, don't go to the realtors. They go directly to the business vendor.
Absolutely. Man, Jonathan J, thank you so much for just providing this great information, man, and actionable steps that the listeners can take, as well as myself, and just to get started in doing more research on this topic, and actually get started if they want to do it. So thank you for sharing your time today, and thank you for giving me the chance to pick your brain, man. I really appreciate getting the chance to
No,
speak with you.
my pleasure. And anyone who would like some help and advice, no charge, just reach out to me on LinkedIn.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Thank you, Jonathan.
No, my pleasure. Thank you very much.